Test. Merry Christmas. It's a great day in Kershaw County, and I thank you for the slight delay. We had to let people to sign in on the sign roster. Did everybody get a chance to sign in? Those that wish to speak. Okay, that's terrific. We have a quorum. Mr. Snodgrass is on travel, and we're in the height of the end of football and volleyball and other seasons. Basketball and wrestling has started. All council members should have a copy of Vision 2030 in front of you. And with that, I think we're ready to go. We're called to order. And could you all please stand for the invocation and pledge given by Russell Brazel? Please, Russell.
You know, I'm going to do something a little different. If y'all will bear with me, I'm going to read out of this book, Jesus is Calling. I'm going to do that first, and I'm going to pray, and then we can stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Well.
If that suits everyone. Rest in me, my child, forgetting about the worries of the world. Focus on me, Emmanuel, and let my living presence envelop you in peace. Tune in to my eternal security, for I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. If you live on the surface of life by focusing on ever-changing phenomenon, you will find yourself echoing the words of Solomon. Meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Living in collaboration with me is the only way to instill meaning in your days. Begin each day alone with me so that you can experience the reality of my presence. As you spend time with me, the way before you opens up step by step. Arise from the stillness of our communion and gradually begin your journey with me through the day. Hold my hand in deliberate dependence on me, and I will smooth out a path before you. May we pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for another opportunity to meet and discuss our community's needs and address them in a positive manner. I pray that we can all work together looking only for solutions to issues that we face in our world today. As so many people want to divide our great nation, my prayer is that we do our part to work together and to remember that our greatest threat is not from within our own community, but from the evil that lies in the hearts of men that want to see us destroy ourselves. Lord, let us look to you for our solutions, not to other men and women, not to the media, not to the government, but to you, O Lord, because we know that the only constant in this world is Jesus Christ. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, sir. And with that, we'll begin with a public presentation. We're delighted to welcome Sheriff Lee Bone and the Carolina Motorsport Park. Hello, Mr. Cummins.
So you've already introduced Mr. Michael Cummins over the park here. Just wanted to get a little brief today of what the park does for us here in Kershaw County. You know, with our training these days, we have to do a lot of extra training in law enforcement. Believe it or not, there are certain attorneys out there that when they're not chasing ambulances, they're chasing us. So we got to make sure we do it right, and we got to have the best training possible to do it right. The track does a lot for us. It's an outstanding location. Very good track, plenty of room out there for training. We have a whole lot less damage to our vehicles, a lot better drivers because of the track. Not only us, but Camden Police Department also trains there. I trained there when I was with Camden Police Department. They hosted North Central Prom this past year. They've done a lot for the community, and we just wanted to let you know how much we appreciate them, and we appreciate what all they do for Kershaw County. We got a video attached. I think Danny's got it for us that'll kind of show a little bit about what we do out there.
Thank you. Sheriff, you can just tell the people in the audience, they already heard, but the people watching didn't hear what you had to say. Please.
Okay,
We have about 800 people watching on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, the part you see here is everybody doing all the maneuvers successfully. There was a lot that's not on the video where the guys did run off the road. And what we tell them out there is, this is where you find your limitation of your vehicles. Not out on the street with the citizens. This is where you find it out at. So this is a huge resource to us. And I don't know what we would do without this type of training, this facility. Most counties don't have this available to them. Like I said, here at Kershaw County, as well as Camden and, Elgin, they've been out there too. They offer training. You've seen one of our jail vehicles there. So this driver's training, people come from other counties to try to get a part of it.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Jones.
Thank you so much. Sheriff, thank you for bringing this to us to see it tonight. I really enjoyed it. It brings back old memories for me because I've done that before, in the early 70s.
We didn't have any horses on there. This was just a...
Thank you, Sheriff. And Mr. Cummins, thank you so much. I know my cousin Mike is a big fan of yours, and he's been hounding me to come up there, and I will get up there eventually. I really enjoyed it. I really think you were in the wrong spot. You should have been under public presentation so that we could have some dialogue with you, but I am glad you came. I just think
it is a public presentation.
Oh, okay. We moved it to the beginning?
Yes. So we can have them move
I thought it was
on.
public comments. Okay, very good. Well, I stand corrected. But thank you so much, Sheriff, for being here tonight. And I'm going to tell you something. A quick question since we're in public presentation. What about the top-heavy cars? Do you have to really be a little bit more careful when you do the turns?
It would surprise you how well they handle
Yeah.
the SUVs, because they're made for it. These are all pursuit-rated SUVs, and they're pretty
Well,
bottom-heavy.
that impressed me because knowing that they're high up and they're top-heavy, I kept going.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want-
The Ford Explorer, that's the current Crown Vic in law enforcement, and it has been for probably the past, close to 10 years now. That Explorer, that's what's replaced the Crown Vic.
Well, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Cummins, for what you do for our community. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Anybody else? I do want to brag on Mr. Cummins. He has come here and upgraded that CMP. If you haven't been up there, see the go-karts, see the, Le Mans or a quality racetrack. It's just amazing.
NASCAR.
It's a great economic investment in the northern part of our county, sir. I appreciate your willingness to help our county with your investments, and you bring in your family and everyone here. And I would really appreciate the way you've also attracted other investments in that part of our county near Westville. It's very helpful. And if you haven't been up there, he's invested 24/7 capability, and he's also invested much in the new track. And if you want to speak any more about that, sir, please, if you would. Did I pretty well cover it?
No, you did a good job, Julian. And first of all, I want to say how much my family and I enjoy being in Kershaw County and our relationship that we have with the county. It's a real asset, I think, for the track. Last year we bought the track. Even with the shutdown and the pandemic, we were able to find a way to resurface the entire track. It had been worn out. Business was pretty much gone because tires were just being worn out. And it was nip and tuck there for a while with the shutdown and whatnot, but we did get it repaved last year in 2020. 21, we started upgrading other things, like the PA system, restrooms, and those types of things. We'll probably spend another year upgrading what we purchased. And then beyond that, we're going to look at we got some exciting expansion ideas that we'll talk about at a later date. We're honored to have your people, both City of Camden and Kershaw County law enforcement there. Anything that we can do to make their job safer, we want to be part of. And we know it has, one way we know it has value is we have other departments outside the county who actually pay to do the same thing. So they see enough value that they'll actually write a check. So again, thank you for letting us have the presentation, and we look forward to doing this for as long as I own the racetrack.
And the track is now operating, 214 days a year now. That's a dramatic increase in its utilization and the input of tourism dollars into Kershaw County, sir. And I would like to say one last thing. We'll see you on the Lemons block party.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheriff, and Merry Christmas. The next item is public comments. And it's also public comments in regards to an ordinance adopting a redistricting plan for Kershaw County, redefining the 6 single-member county council districts reapportioned as to population. The maps are up on the wall, and they're also have been available to the public for several weeks. With that, I'll open up public comments.
Mr. Chairman, 6 people signed up for public comments.
Yeah.
The first person signed up is Tom Webb III.
Mr. Webb, please, sir.
I suppose the sheriff's department's going to get an awful lot of young fellows wanting to join after watching that video. Pearl Harbor, 80 years ago, an obvious war, declared war. People knew they were at war. Had some other wars since then that were never declared, but they were still really wars. Now I think we're in a sneaky war where our enemies are hoping we don't know we're at war. It's easier to fight somebody when they don't know they're at war. There's something that soldiers out in the field don't want to hear. Anybody at a fire base or any small encampment, they don't want to hear they're inside the perimeter. I think they're inside the perimeter here. We're being overrun. It's gone way beyond politics. It's kind of war, really a sneaky war. Been going on for a while. Education, medicine, communications, finances, they're picking away at us all kind of ways. I got in trouble with some of my veterans friends. It's odd how the American spirit is, I wouldn't say it has gone away, but it's different from what it used to be back during Pearl Harbor, when people knew they were at war. I had this little sign, it's war, not politics. Some of my veteran friends took issue with me for this. Kind of surprised me. It's war, not politics. It's gone way beyond politics. What's going on to us, what's happening to us. Pearl Harbor made it clear to those people back then. Well, something else. Today is December the 14th. It's a day to remember in the history of human heroic kindness. We had an angel of mercy right here from in this county, from up about Westville area, a long time ago. He put his life at risk to minister to injured and dying enemies, people that just before had wanted to kill him. So they were young men far from home like himself. And in this case, both sides were Americans. It was Fredericksburg, Virginia, 1862, December the 14th. The Northern forces were attacking the Southern forces up on a high ground at Mary's Height. The Southern forces behind a stone wall and a sunken road, and the temperature was going to go below freezing. And there were all these young fellows, Americans, like I say, both sides, but these Northern Americans were out in this field, injured and dying. And our fellow, Richard Kirkland from just up the road, finally begged permission to cross the line. And so the Northern forces shot at him a little bit until they realized what he was doing. Then I guess you could say it put an end to the battle. And I wish that something like this could end all the wars. But I've got a poem that I've written some years ago that is good for this day, December the 14th, when Richard Kirkland went across the wall, put himself at risk, trying to help his enemies. It's called December Memories. Richard strode by the sunken road to the field of Yankees dying, American boys all misled when they heard their leaders lying. To the right or to the wrong, when life leaks out through bullet holes, thirst is mighty strong, and death may give no quarter. The battle was bad for the Northern lads, and the young men cried to the other side for just a little water. Our fellow heard their pleads and sought to fill their needs. Canteens and blessings is all I have to give, and hope that some of y'all will slip away and live. If victory leads to arrogance, I wonder what is won. If losing makes us always lost, then humankind is done. He crossed the stones among the moans and crawled away a fool, but he returned as angels yearn to sing the golden rule. Now each December we'll recall how Richard Kirkland at the wall gave us Christmas. We'll remember his Christmas present to us all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Webb. Mr. DeBose.
The second person that signed up is Bob Giangorgi. Giangorgi.
Mrs. Giangorgi, please.
Bob Giangorgi, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And what I wanted to do was just make some comments about KC Trails and some of the progress and our purpose. KC Trails came about, a little over 2 years ago, really as an outgrowth of the vision, Kershaw 2030, the section in there dealing with recreation, where the goal was to expand and promote opportunities for recreation. So we have a group that has been quite active over the last couple of years, and I've given you a handout that lists a lot of the things that we've done. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but do want to highlight some things. We believe, KC Trails believes that an extensive, robust, and diverse trail system within the county adds value in many ways. First, the additional recreation opportunities contribute to improved well-being. The more outdoor engagement improves the participants' health, and trail systems enhance overall quality of life and the community attractiveness, which is important to the private citizens of the county, also very attractive to businesses that are looking to make an investment in the county. We've been very active in numerous areas, and I just want to highlight several. In a partnership with the Kershaw County Walkers, Runners, and Cyclists, Holspire, which is the previous Eat Smart, Move More, and Live Well Kershaw, we implemented a county-wide road safety awareness program. This was something that many, many residents in the county have identified as a concern for them as they become more active in the county. We've also had a very active engagement with the Clemson Lloyd Project and there we're trying to promote community access to their trail system consistent with their mission and timing. We've been working with Goodall State Park to add a second multi-use trail to the park, and also encouraging them to make improvements to the canoe kayak put-in area. We're also working with Goodall on a first day hike event. This is for the January 1, 22, and that's open to the community. It'll be a ranger-led trail walk, and the main reason to do this is to get the community, get the county to know Goodall Park. It's a real asset for us, and we want, KC Trails wants to do as much as we can to promote that. And that leads me to really a new partnership for KC Trails, and that's with the Goodall Friends in the effort to revitalize Goodall State Park. Tommy Swan, who will follow me, will go into that in more detail. Just in sum, while we've made a lot of progress both in the county and the cities over the last couple of years, it's my recommendation that a county-wide committee to establish, to evaluate, prioritize, and initiate new trail initiatives is very important. I think such a collaborative approach will move more quickly and effectively move Kershaw County forward in attaining the recreation goal in Vision Kershaw 2030. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bob. Appreciate it. Thanks, sir. Mr.
The
DeBose.
third person that signed up is Tommy Swan.
Mr. Swan, thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen, board members, and I want to say it's been a privilege working closely with Bobby G, as I call him, because I can't pronounce his name half the time. That will suffice. What I want to talk about tonight is Vision 2030, and specifically as it relates to the Goodell State Park. Let me say, first of all, that Vision 2030, I looked at it a few years ago, and it's a great plan for Kershaw County, and I fully support that. But tonight I want to talk about N.R. Goodell State Park. A little bit of background, I was born and raised in Camden, East Camden, not too far from the park. So it was Kershaw County Park then, and I spent most of my childhood days from the time the park was open till it closed, getting waterlogged and enjoying swimming out there. I learned to swim out there as a lot of people do, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in this audience who likewise spent their childhood days out there. It was originally called the Adams Mill Pond. As far as we could tell, there is some evidence that it goes back even further than that, pre-Civil War days. It was originally a mill pond and a plantation, and it was built by Major Samuel Adams, who was a Union soldier under General Sherman. He liked the area so much, he was impressed with that particular tract of land that he made the mill pond out of it, according to what I'm reading in the archives. It was originally purchased for $44,600, $450,000 in today's money, from W.R. and George Little family. Became the Kershaw County Park in 1955 and then turned over to the state in 1973. 764 acres were carved out for the state park as you see it today, which includes the tract of land on each side of the Stagecoach Highway. 1,198 acres was retained by the county, and part of that was used for the landfill. So that's a little bit of brief history. Now, it was named as a state park after N.R. Goodell, and I was really impressed when I went back to read the history of it, the rich history of it, because Roland, as his name was a florist in Camden and put a lot of energy into and had a great vision for the park. And he and a few other people were on the commission, and they pushed and lobbied very hard to get this property, seeing what the kind of vision it could be for the citizens of Kershaw County. Now, if you go to the archives, there's a good history of Goodell State Park. It's available. I encourage everyone to read that. Vision 2030, the one that's created in 2016, is a great plan for Kershaw County. And if you look at the plan, it talks about N.R. Goodell, at least it mentions specifically N.R. Goodell in two key areas, economic growth and recreation. And it's part of the objective number 2 to develop a comprehensive network of recreation trails, greenways, and paths. And it simply states this as one of the strategies. Work with public and private sector entities to identify and develop day-use access points of lake water, including facilities, camping, fishing, and picnicking. In another area, it says engage South Carolina state parks to identify a strategic plan for expanded use of Goodell State Park. So Goodell State Park is part of this plan for the recreation. And if you go back and look at also at economic growth, it's also mentioned as an integral part of economic growth for Kershaw County. So it is critical for Kershaw County. So why is N.R. Goodell important for Vision 2030? Number one, East Camden needs it. Let them know that this is their vision as well. They've got a gym that's out there in this 764-acre park, and it's something they should be proud of. In fact, the entire county should be very proud of it. The park could boost economic development. I mean, if you look at the land use in that part of the county, it's some of the cheapest acres you could find. So you would expect some would-be suitor would be looking at that area. It'd be nice to have more amenities like you have the airport located in that area to offer them to, as a place that they can locate their business. Now, without Vision 2030, what we could see is the park and the vision. The park could decay over time, and that would be a tragedy. The history of the park, like many parks across America, when we fall upon hard times, those are the first places where states and federal governments, they choose to do their cuts. And you have to really stay on top of those and replenish the pool at some point. So what can we do? Keep Goodell State Park at the top of your vision and realize the integral part that it has in making this community better. And I think if you've given me the time on that.
Please wrap it up, sir.
Okay, well, I'll wrap it up now.
No, if you have more to say, please.
I do, but Judge is coming up next, so
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Swan. All right, Mr. Hardis.
Chairman, since Bob and Tommy have pretty well covered my speech, and Tommy likes a little more on his, I'd like to yield my time to him to finish up, if that's all right with y'all.
Yes, sir.
That certainly is. Go ahead,
Add a
please.
few more minutes, I will.
I regret, our rules say 5 minutes per person or less, and I appreciate that, Judge Hardis. Thank you. Go ahead, Tommy.
The park does have excellent kayaking and canoeing facilities that are some of the best in the state. And it is a true gem. Unfortunately, the run and maintain budget, it's difficult to survive and to keep things up to quality. And that's really the way things have been, and it's not really anyone to blame on that. There's a lot of things that need to be done. So I encourage, keep In Our Good Hour as part of your plan, but also help be a part of the strategy to revive the park and get the usage up as the plan suggests. I'd like to see a few amenities out there, or more amenities, and I think it could offer more than what it has now. I'd love to see it as a garden park. Plant more flowers, azaleas, like Hampton Park is. Hampton Park is a beautiful park in the spring. Augusta National, everybody recognizes the azaleas they have out there. And of course, Swan Lake and Sumter. I kind of like that name. And you also have 230 acres across the road, the old Pickett Thomas property, just waiting for someone to have a vision for that. So one thing I have to offer is we've created a Friends of Good Owl Facebook group page. I encourage everyone to go there and look at the pictures of the park in yesteryear, and also some recent photos that have been posted on the website. And feel free to comment and talk about what you like about Goodall State Park. It is a great park, like I say. And at some point, there will be a 501c3. We'll have the opportunity to roll our sleeves up and get involved with local businesses, community action, and make the park something very attractive for the ones local in the county and also those throughout the state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Judge Hardis and Mr. Swan. Thank you very much indeed. Sir, Mr. DeBose.
Well, the next person is Judge Hardis, but I believe he yielded his time.
All
So
right.
I believe that's correct. And so the next person is William Tetterton.
Mr. Tetterton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the County Council. The reason I'm here is I think y'all have it as new business on last page for a renewed and reimagined approach to the boat landing. Well, when I got the agenda a few minutes ago, I read that, and I read a renewed and reimagined approach to the boat landing. And what that tells me is that y'all have probably heard this problem before, and immediately it came to my mind that whatever talked to y'all before fell on deaf ears. The reason I'm here is because I'm a lifelong citizen of Kershaw County. That river is one of my favorite places to go. My wife and I use it a lot of times to go camping on it, and I've been using that ramp for quite a while now. Gentlemen, that's a dangerous situation. The reason it's dangerous is very simple. If you go down to the Sumter County ramp on Highway 76, the dock is the dock is above the current. So you have a nice little flat pool of water there. You can launch your boat and get back in, retrailer your boat and get out of there without damaging your property or potential loss of life. Now, what's happening out there at Lugoff is whoever designed that thing, that's a design defect. Very simple. When you launch your boat with the dock downstream, the current is coming upstream. What does the current do? It sweeps you into the dock, and from personal experience, I can tell you this. Now, I'm a boater. Somebody tweeted on Facebook, said, why don't they learn to run a boat? Well, let me tell you, my wife and I both are licensed Coast Guard boat captains. We ran dive charter boats off the coast of South Carolina for 5 years till we got tired of doing it. But we know how to run a boat. So the problem is when you come into the boat ramp, you've got to crab into the landing. And for those who fly airplanes know what crabbing into a soft crosswind is. You have to crab into the landing, and hope the current doesn't come over and swamp your boat and sink your boat. That happened to me. Now, what I did was I came in, I crabbed my boat in, tried to land it on the trailer. The current came down, nothing to block the current. Water came over the back of my boat. I immediately backed out, poured a drain, went up and drained my water out and tried it again. Well, it didn't work again because the current was too strong. Nothing blocked the current. So what happened? I capsized. Luckily for me, I was a little younger than I am now. I got underneath my boat, walked on the bottom of the river. I walked my boat up to the bank, and fortunately, people there helped me pull my boat out and reload my boat again, and we pulled the plugs out and drained it. That's not the way that ramp should be designed. Now,
Can you bring that microphone over? People are having trouble hearing you.
that's not the way that
Thank you.
boat ramp should be designed. It's a very simple matter to correct it. Put the ramp above, put the boat dock above the ramp to block the water, or get something to block that current so you don't have that problem with the current coming in and banging your boat up against the dock. Now, I understand this was, y'all approach this.
Would you bring the microphone center? I'm still
How
getting.
about that? Can you hear
Yeah,
me
there
now?
you go. People can hear you now.
All right.
Thanks.
Now, I wasn't going to get too much involved in this because what I started doing was I started going downriver and launching my boat at private ramps. I didn't want to bang my boat up anymore, and I didn't want to jeopardize me drowning. Sad part about me capsizing my boat is I lost two of my favorite Henry Niles custom-made rod and reels. Henry Niles died several years ago, and I valued those rod and reels. But anyway, I lost it. I ran into Jimmy Jones, and Jimmy said, "William, anything we need to do for you on the county council?" I said, "Sure, just approach this thing." So what I'm bringing to your attention today is y'all have not y'all, the county has a very simple, dangerous situation out there that needs to be corrected. Well, I talked to our senator about it. Her comment was, I've been working on it for a long time. I talked to Vic Dabney about it. I've been working on it for 14 months. So again, when y'all renew and reimagine something y'all have already entertained, again, it's falling on deaf ears. Now, comment I get from our representatives is very simply this. County doesn't own the ramp. DNR doesn't own the ramp. Nobody knows who owns the ramp. So I'm sure our county attorney can do some research and find out who owns that ramp. And whoever owns that ramp should be responsible for it. So, Chairman Burns, you assured me when I talked to you about it that you were going to get something done about it. And I said, well, when? And my comment was, y'all going to appoint a committee, and the committee's going to look at it, and again, it's going to fall on deaf ears. Gentlemen, I'm a lawyer. I'm a trial lawyer. And I don't chase ambulances. I usually get there before the ambulance gets there. That's a joke.
Thank you, sir.
But anyway, so what I'd like for y'all to do now, I have some photographs here which I'd like to pass around. I know
William, can you wrap it up? We're at 5 minutes now.
Sure, as long as it doesn't fall long.
I would like him to have a little extra time. The serious nature of this,
We
Mr.
have 5 minutes. If you want to pass those out.
Let me make two more comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Number one, I'm going to pass these photographs around for people who's had their boats banged up against the ramps and suffered property damage.
Thank you very much.
Then, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask the people in the audience who's had these same problems to raise their hand if they would, please.
Let's see, just for the record, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's over 10 people, and plus 2 members up here and myself as well. Thank you.
All right, so the county council now have been put on notice that
Thank you, William.
y'all have a serious problem, a dangerous problem, and Chairman, I appreciate your comment to me that you're going to get something done about it.
That's correct. Thank you. Mr. DeBose.
The
Thank
last
you, William.
person that signed
Mr.
up.
DeBose.
Yeah, the last person that signed up is Richard Hunter.
Say again the last name?
Hunter, H-U-N-T-E-R.
Mr. Hunter. Thank you.
Richard Hunter.
Good evening, fellas.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Richard.
Thank you. First thing I want to say is I appreciate y'all putting on that trash pickup that y'all had in the river a month or so ago. That place really needs it. I mean, it could probably get it every once a month and be good, okay? But we're here to talk about the boat ramp, and I'm not no engineer. What Mr. Tedderton said, it is a dangerous situation. I don't know how to fix it, or maybe the least expensive way would be to fix what we got instead of putting in a new one. You know, I've talked to some people, and if maybe some way put something rip-rap or metal or something out there to make a eddy over there where the water is steady, where you can put the boat on the ramp and take your boat off, would maybe be the best economical way to do that. I don't know. It is dangerous. I've repaired a few trailers and stiffened up their guide-ons and stuff like that because of that reason. And it all comes back to the water flow coming out of the dam. Can't nobody control that. You know, that's going to happen no matter what. I don't know what's the best way to do it, but it is a concern. I'm concerned about it. I don't want to see nobody get hurt down there whatsoever. We got enough problems down there without somebody getting hurt. If we can make that a better place, that would be great. I mean, that's really all I got to say, fellas. You know, and I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, sir, and we'll get
Thank
to
you,
that
Richard.
later in the agenda. Thank you very much. Mr. DeBose.
That concludes the sign-up list.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming in and signing up, and more of that later in our agenda. We move now to public comments regarding an ordinance adopting a redistricting plan for Kershaw County Council, redefining the 6 single-member county council districts, reapportioned as to population in accordance with the 2020 federal decennial census and applicable laws and requirements. Mr. DeBose, did anybody sign up for that?
Nobody signed up for that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'll open the hearing, and I'll also tell you the redistricting plan is on the wall above us. Yeah, I certainly can. Thank you very much, Mr. Tedderton. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tedderton. Seeing there is no comments, we'll close the public hearing. And we move now into the agenda, which is on the board, and the adoption of the agenda.
No, you have another public hearing.
Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tucker, a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gardner. Any discussion on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
I believe we have a public hearing on the agenda.
We have one more public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
I don't see it in my written thing here. Hang on a minute. The printout I was given.
It's in Field Lou.
Yes, sir. You read the
the
public comments
comment.
about.
Oh, my goodness, yep, it's my mistake. Public hearing regarding an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment in a fee in lieu ad valorem taxes agreement to and between Kershaw County and Whalekim, formerly identified by the county as Project Bobcat, including any current or future affiliates or related entities as sponsor, to provide for an extension of the investment period therein and other related matters. So we'll open that public hearing. And seeing there's no one coming forward, we will close that. And let me go back to make sure I'm reading the proper one here. So with that, we move to the adoption of the agenda, and we have a motion from Mr. Tucker and a second from Mr. Gardner. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing there is none, I have a little bit. What I was asked to do is to bring forward, as a prerogative of the chairman, the briefing on Vision Kershaw 2030, and we'll do that immediately after the approval of the minutes being at tab A, page 3. Any further discussion? With that, we move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous, and we move on to bringing up Vision 2030 discussion.
That's approval of the minutes.
Mr. We need
Yeah.
the minutes and
Approval
then.
of minutes.
you said you
Okay,
wanted
we'll
to
do the minutes.
Yes, sir.
We have now next the minutes, which is at tab A, page 3. And can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Gardner, any discussion? Seeing there is none, we move to a vote. All those in favor of the minutes signify by raising your hand, and it's unanimous. And we now bring up the vision document.
Thank you.
Please come on up forward. The item is a Vision 2030 approval. You have a hard copy. We'll first ask for a motion, and then we'll have the briefing. Can we have a motion to approve the vision document?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we approve the Vision 30 document as amended.
Mr. Connell, a second?
Second.
From Mr. Tucker. And with that, we move into discussion. Paula, would you kindly take us through it? Thank you.
On behalf of our core team, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of Kershaw County Council for the opportunity to present Vision Kershaw 2030 as reimagined in 2021. The second slide, please.
And bring that microphone dead center. Yes, there you go.
Can't see. This particular slide represents some of the key concepts behind the successes that we have had in the first 5 years. Concepts like collaboration and teamwork, creating a culture of winning, a sense of community pride, and how they have led to more recent successes. Since the visioning effort was first approved by Kershaw County Council in 2015, we've made annual presentations to County Council where we have noted survey results of over 1,800 people, outlined many successes and accomplishments, and some of those born of competition, others out of need, but always with a great sense of community at the center of them. Tonight, we hope to highlight some of our most recent success stories. Slide 3. We've all had to learn to navigate a changing landscape with changes occurring in all of our institutions, such as our local hospital being acquired by the Medical University of South Carolina system, as well as leadership changes on many boards and municipalities, council, and other local and state elected positions. And of course, in rebuilding, in record time, I might add, after an EF2 tornado hit North Central High School, followed almost immediately by COVID losses in our county, and an ever-changing economy as a result. Slide 4. So in February of this year, we committed to you, members of County Council, to look again at Vision Kershaw 2030 to ensure that it remains as robust and relevant and viable in the next 10 years and beyond as it has been in its first 5 years. With the help of a facilitator, all of these goals that you see were achieved. So what you have here on your table in front of you is the Kershaw County draft of Reimagine 2021 and the areas covered in the refresh of that document. Next slide. Those areas are economic growth, land use, county services excellence, infrastructure and transportation, and a lifetime of health, education, recreation, and culture. And what we've done, and you'll see as we go along, that these are all connected. There's not a single area that we have in Vision Kershaw County, Vision Kershaw 2030, that's not connected in some way to at least one other area that's shown. Slide 6, please. So in your document, in the handbook, you'll see a number of bullet points. Those most important to our discussion tonight are the achievements and successes that we've had in the first 5 years. That's new in addition to showing you the goals and the strategies for each section. We've added achievements and successes first by section. The second item is that of case studies, and we'll get into that in just a minute. So the next slide, please. Wanted to show you that some of these slides that you see here on the logos on this slide before you are familiar to you, and some may not be. But they represent either years, months to years of work to bring an idea or a goal to fruition, while others represent our values as a community. I'd like to thank Mr. Cummings with Carolina Motorsports for being here tonight and for the services that they provide to our law enforcement group. And I'd like to also recognize Kershaw County Trails as a good partner that we see doing great things. A couple of the others that you may not recognize are the sheriff's logo is up there, a deputy sheriff. It's the only one we could lay our hands on at the time. That represents a program called Project Lifesaver, and you'll see that as an accomplishment or a success story under the County Service Excellence in Law Enforcement. That program protects the vulnerable people in our population, the elderly and those with cognitive conditions. And it helps as like a chip that you would carry on your arm or in a watch. And if you have a loved one who begins to wander or gets lost or whatever, that program will significantly enhance the time that it takes to find those people. And that saves lives. Another, the heart shape that you see is Blanketing Families. And that's a charity, a nonprofit out of Elgin. They were recently awarded Elgin Citizens of the Year for the work that they're doing. And their mission is to cover families in need with everything from blankets to love. We think that's pretty special. Mr. Swan, his wife, he's gone now, but his wife has spearheaded the Kershaw County Clean Communities Commission, and that has been a great program that the county council reestablished and got set up several years ago. They can put you in touch with all kinds of resources if you want to conduct your own cleanup of a particular neighborhood. And the puzzle pieces represent the Play Foundation, which is improving the lifestyles of Kershaw County residents and promoting programs that enhance the development of our youth. And you'll see the Play Foundation is behind a number of big projects in our county. They were the force behind All-America City in 2018 that we received for the entire county, and most recently to bark parks and splash pads and things like that. And the final one is the star, the purple star, which represents the purple star designation of the county, of the Kershaw County School District. And the purple star designation is one that's given to schools that are best equipped and designated to help the children of military families when they're in our district. You won't see much about the people behind those logos because they're always behind the scenes making a difference. It's where they've seen a need or they've sought change. They always look to the vision to partner on projects to make something happen. And as an aside to this, we conducted 4 community public meetings this summer, and there was always somebody from one of those areas involved in a meeting. They go to where they need to be. They always showed up. Next, on the new items on the in the vision are 3 case studies, and they highlight themes of the vision. Again, collaboration between public and private sectors, nonprofits, teamwork, communication, persistence, inclusion, diversity, change, relationships, resiliency, and again, above all, a strong sense of community.
Please keep the microphone centered. People can't hear you.
Okay, sorry. Next slide, please. As I said, it's all about community. In everything that we have done for the last 6 years, that same thing keeps coming back. As people value their neighborhoods and their communities, and they want to engage. Next is the revised partnership matrix in the vision, and that goes to some of the many of the partners that the Vision 2030 is partnering with to make a difference in our community. Most of these in the back have a social media presence and/or a website for getting more information. It's a great way to get involved and to make a difference in your neighborhood and community. Next slide. Vision Kershaw 2030, as reimagined, continues to put people first and provide the impetus for how we can work together to guide policy, operational and budget decisions, and to achieve great things as a county, to be the great place. There will always be challenges, but with a vision, we think that makes it easier to overcome those challenges. So with that, to members of council, thank you for your continued support of this vision effort, and a nod to the Kershaw County Recreation Department for putting on the Tinsel Trail out at the Wateree Veterans Park. If you haven't been there, you need to go. It's 50 trees plus some other light installations that people, organizations, and individuals have partnered with the county to put up a tree that represents their interest. And it really is a good effort and being enjoyed by a lot of folks locally, as well as being in the news as a place to come to look at the great lights. And that's it.
Well, thank you very much. One point, though, is that WLTX announced it as in Camden, but it's in Lugoff, and I was out in Lugoff this morning, and they made sure, I made sure of that point. Thank you very much. Can you tell us who's here from the core team that wrote this document?
Susan Wachowski is here.
Yeah, Susan?
Steve Van Horn.
Terrific.
Kevin Rhodes was going to be running late. He had another engagement, as did Michael Wright, but I'll recognize the other members of the committee.
Go ahead, please.
Mike Conley, Paul Curtis, George Gibson, Kevin Rhodes, Dennis Stuber, Steve Van Horn, Lewis Wilson, Susan Wachowski, and Michael Wright.
And those were all volunteers, and they operated without any pay and gave several hours of their time over the last 9 months. With that, I want to open it up for a discussion, starting with Mr. Connell. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This vision has changed a lot since we started working on it 4 or 5 years ago. Some things are very similar, but as it's grown and interest has grown, particularly this last cycle, I'd have to say there were maybe 60 or 70 folks, community leaders, that showed up at, whether it was Blaney or Stover, I forget exactly, but I just know we were packed into one of the small libraries there, and there's a lot of people who are really interested, everybody from different economic backgrounds, different religions, different races, commenting on what they thought about Kershaw County and how it could improve. And in that sense, it's kind of a living document. It changes as we have additional needs, and it's also open to interpretation. Mr. Chairman, one thing that I looked at tonight that just hit me with the comments that we've had, I remember Mr. Holland and others getting up in the past, and then we had Mr. Tedderton and others get up tonight talking about boat ramp safety. And part of it being open to interpretation, you've got a section on page 34, for example, Part C talks about acquiring green space along the Wateree River. that leaves us open to try to figure out how we can determine what the state needs to do to say we either own it or they do. There has been a lot of buck passing, it sounds like, back and forth. And I know we have this on the agenda a little bit later, but the point is, even this issue fits into Vision 2030 and how do we fix it. I do think it's time for action on that issue, and I would interpret it that way so that we can take action as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Who had the second there? Is that Mr. Tucker? Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say thank you to all of you, the committee, and all of the hard work that you guys have put in, as well as Mr. Swan was talking about Thomas Pickett Park. I do not want to lose focus on that 200 and something acres over there into all that we're doing, because that's a very important part as well, and especially to the African-American community, because at one time, that was the only place that they could go and play golf. And I have been talking with my colleague, Councilman Snodgrass, into that. We need to do something very exciting with that, that could let everybody know what the history, how rich it was there, even if it's not a golf course complete, maybe a 9-hole par 3, something where we can collaborate with other sources like, Golf One or Pro Golf that would be able to sponsor us and lever resources. I think there's some things out there that we can do, and it can be a great source for our young kids coming up to be able to have somewhere to go. And it's not where it costs them an arm or a leg, or the parents, where they can have decent activities as far as golf is concerned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Other comments, please? Mr. Jones?
No, I think.
Mr. Gardner?
Yeah, just
Go ahead.
thank you for your time. Thank you for all the work that you do. It's a tremendous amount of work I know that goes into this to make it what it is, that and research to revamp what we started and re-engage and change direction in some cases or what have you. So it's an important document, I think, for us to for a roadmap for what we're trying to do here in the county, and to keep those things in front of us that we don't forget on those things that we need to do. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Other comments? Was that you, Russell?
Yeah, excuse me. No, I'd like to thank the entire committee for working on this. I know it's a lot of work. The one section in particular that catches my eye is the land use section and the different objectives. I really appreciate you guys including the agriculture and forestry and ecology in this section. We don't know how important it is, or maybe some of us do, some of us don't, how important it is for people to be able to get out and enjoy Lake Wateree, to be able to get out and enjoy the Wateree River. We've got a heritage in Kershaw County. We've got a heritage like no other. From the time I was a child, I spent time with my dad, and he's sitting in the back of the room, in the back of his bass boats. We've got some of the fondest memories together growing up in the back of a boat, and my son's sitting right over here. We spend time in the woods, and we want to continue to see Kershaw County wooded. We've had a lot of development, and we understand development's coming. But I stand behind our local builders that build, the people that live in our communities, and I like that initiative that's developed smart and wisely, and support these local people so that we do have green space in our communities, so that we don't become like we've seen other communities overrun with very dense housing developments that'll clog our roads and make it tough to travel through Kershaw County. So I think what I see in here, I feel that, and I hope I'm not missing that. But thank you for all of y'all's hard work, and including all of the agriculture and forestry sections that I see in here. Thank you very much.
Other comments?
If I may,
Mr. Jones?
a couple of questions mainly. And this is going to be to Mr. Carpenter and to Ken Bose. In the 2030 vision, does it state in your mind any positions of encouragement for government to invest into commercial private businesses?
Mr. Jones, I think you can interpret sections in there how individual council members may choose to. There's no part of the plan that obligates the county to do anything or any city or government to do anything. It's merely a vision of what citizens in our community were seeing. I think if you might be able to interpret aspects of that, but there's not a specific area where we sit there and say, the Kershaw County is the vision is that we would invest in that.
And the reason I ask that, because there's so much good in here. I mean, there's a lot of things in here I really like. Where I have a little bit of concern is, when it says expand inventory, shovel-ready sites that incorporate partnerships with the, South Carolina Department of Commerce, utilities, and private businesses, organizations. And then there's another statement, ensure focus on small businesses as well as large employers. What worries me and scares me about this, and even when it says develop incentives to encourage entrepreneurships while also attracting, expanding local, and different forms of economic development, lodging, restaurants, and conference facilities. When you talk about restaurants, you talk about hotels, those are private. And we just went through a situation where we did some incentives for a private business that, from everything I understand, if it does happen, it will have probably a hotel. I mean, it'll be a boutique hotel. It'll also be a restaurant in it, and it will be a bar in it, which will be in direct competition, with other mom and pop organizations. And then with the policy that we just passed, I think that policy, it even says something about a policy in this vision, creating policies for private, public, partnerships or whatever. I feel that with the ordinance we just passed, I'm not saying this, that puts us in a position where we decide who gets the freebies and who doesn't, and there won't be any more mom and pop businesses, whether it's restaurants, lumber companies, whatever, because all the big box stores will get, that have the millions of dollars, they go come in here and we will pick and choose who gets a free ride for a few years. But you know what? That's where I have a concern. I mean, this is a great piece of work otherwise. And I understand it's just a vision. I understand there's no budget for any of this. It's an outlook for us in the future. But because of my position on the boutique hotel, it says, incentivize additional lodging, restaurants, providers, and also it goes over here. Excuse me one second. Promote policies that preserve and promote the unique nature of downtown key buildings, streets, and public spaces. That makes me think we're talking about what we just did, a situation like with the boutique hotel, which I did not support. So I asked Mr. Carpenter and Mr. DeBose, help me understand where I'm missing the boat on that.
Ms. Jones, I guess
if I am.
As I said, Mr. I think each one of you is going to interpret some of these. In developing incentives, for example, to encourage entrepreneurs, et cetera, I think a big part of the discussions that I've heard people say is there are a lot of incentives that the county can do that we have done in the past, for example, to encourage subdivisions. Some years ago, we allowed sewer impact fees to be waived until they actually took out building permits versus requiring them to pay up front. That's an incentive. So an incentive is what you decide it is. It doesn't have to be tax incentives. It could be policy decisions. It can be incentives of trying to encourage people to take advantage of grant programs that are already out there through other entities. So I don't think incentives, you're reading at as meaning tax incentives, but I think the intention is incentives can be a lot of different things that y'all will make the decision on each case by case. And so as we look to work with development, are there ways that we can, with our policies or even our ordinances, structure them in ways that encourage things? It doesn't necessarily require us to pass tax policy as an incentive.
Yeah, and then I see on page 31, under this item, it says promote policies that preserve and promote the unique nature of downtown key buildings, streets, and public spaces. Then when I hear that the city has bought a building and they're going to tear it down and make some parking space out of it, may be true, may not be true, but that's what I've heard. For a private business that they just gave an 85% tax abatement to. Look out in this room here, I see a lot of private business owners, or a few of them out here, and I'm sure that nobody wants government getting involved into the private sector. Mr. DeBose, legal point on my position.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, I think the administrator has correctly articulated that it's only a vision, and the incentives, if any, would have to be voted on by county council.
So
Nothing in this document is legislative. It's not a legislative document, it's another way of saying it.
And I'm trying to understand better. So you're telling me that if I vote for this, my vote is in no way supporting competition with government and private business?
That is correct. This is not a legislative document, it's a policy. A
I
legislative
understand
document would be
that,
actual
but we
incentives.
also have a policy that says if somebody comes in here and invests private business X amount of millions of dollars, they will be eligible for incentives, just as the boutique hotel was, which is on a 6-month delay.
Well, the policy, well, it also says that you view it on a case-by-case basis, the policy does. So the policy is not self-effectuating. You would have to actually enact any incentive. County council would.
So you're telling me that a vote for this will not say that I support
That's,
government getting involved in private business?
it will not say that, no.
Or giving incentives to private business so that they're in direct competition with other private
Mr.
businesses?
Jones, it does not say that.
I agree.
Okay. I think y'all have done a great job. And I hope you don't take my questions as being negative. If I don't understand, I've got to ask the questions to understand. Now, I'm going to hold Mr. DeBose, and I'm going to hold Mr. Carpenter 150% responsible for what they just told me, because I came in here based on what I read, and I was very uncomfortable because I voted against the horrible investment that we were going to give to that boutique hotel that was coming here. And of course, I didn't know anything about it, or there wasn't but one little quick meeting on it, in an executive session. Then I didn't hear anything else about it. We were ready to vote. And things like that just bother me. But I think this is an open book. It's a plan. It's a direction. I think it's got a lot of great stuff in it. You folks have done a good job. You folks are the reason I'm going to vote for it, as well as Mr. DeBose's and
Those
Mr.
assurances.
Carpenter's insurance that I'm not supporting government giving tax abatements to private businesses. Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Ben, right, go ahead.
Yeah, there are tax abatements or fee lows that occur with any private business, whether you call it private business, industry, commercial, or otherwise. But I think the document's holistic. It's non-binding in any way. It gives feedback from the community on what they would like to see happen overall. There's a lot of differing opinions in it. And one policy, Mr. Jones, I think has been helpful and that we all kind of work together on with other folks in the community might be Central Carolina and working with the school district and the county. So that doesn't happen unless everybody kind of came together on that particular policy, where if your grade point average is a particular number in Kershaw County, you can go to Central Carolina and get some education and training. You can partner up with local businesses, so that's the private sector, who you can work on their widget maker, whatever their piece of machinery is, at some of the incubator bays. You can work on it and learn while you're still in high school. And by the time you graduate, you can be seasoned and experienced getting certificates in welding or some other specialty and have a job when you come out, if that's the right track for you. So to me, that would be a policy and incentive that has come out of this document, with various government entities and private sector folks working together to try to improve it, particularly for young people.
Okay, other comments?
Yes, sir, if I could. I have much respect for my colleague, but I don't totally agree with everything you just said. We had welding nurses studies long before Vision 2030 was here. I've just said I'm going to support it, so I don't want to rock the boat anymore by saying too much and change my mind again.
All right.
Well, thank you all for adopting it, and I'd like to think that everybody will give it another read-through to talk about all the things that have occurred despite very difficult times that our county has been through. I didn't mean to shortchange the 3 case studies, but those truly show how our community, the different partners in our community, come together to do great things.
Yeah, thank you, Paula.
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
All right, go ahead,
I
Mr.
have
Jones.
much respect for Mr. Bob and Mr. Van Horn sitting out there, and I appreciate you guys really jumping into it. And being here, you folks being here, has helped me change my no vote that was going to be tonight to a yes vote. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With that, I'm ready to close it out. It is not a plan. I will tell you that subject to the approval tonight, it'll be posted on the webpage on Thursday by our wonderful IT department, and it will be provided universally across the county in hard copy so that you all may see it and use it in preparation for the retreat, much as the dialogue we just had on incentives. Thirdly, I will tell you that in talking to some of the younger groups on the core group, like Michael Wright, he said he doesn't read things in paper, he reads it on the internet, so it will be on the internet in about 48 hours if we approve it. I would also remind you that we have been using the old document for 5 years, and it's been very useful to us. We use it at every single retreat at the start of the budget process. And Susan Witkowski and others of the core group said, for God's sake, don't publish a document that goes on the shelf. It is read for each retreat, and we measure our progress against the vision every time we meet in January and February, and it leads us to a vote on the budget by the end of June. Lastly, as others have said, thanks again to the core group. Thanks to the stakeholders who showed up for all the various sensing sessions that were done over the last 9 months. And I assure the county that we take this very seriously. With that, let's move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you to the core group. Well done. And with that, we move to the other items on our agenda. The first in a series of resolutions. Item number 1 is on page 7 in your electronic book, tab B, for those with hard copy, and up on the screen. A resolution authorizing under certain conditions, Project Orion, a fee in lieu. Mr. Carpenter, can you take us through this, please, sir?
Mr. Chairman, we have tonight a resolution and later on first reading of an ordinance that will authorize a fee in lieu with a company still known as Project Orion. We have previously dealt with this company in discussions related to our spec building.
Okay, with that, can we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tucker, a second.
Second.
From Mr. Gardner, discussion. Do you want to go a little bit further on that, Mr. Carpenter, just to give us a little more background?
Mr. Chairman, yes, this is a company that will be making an
If you move
investment.
the microphone closer.
This is a company that will be making
Sorry about
making an investment in this county of some millions of dollars, hiring our citizens. And this is, as has been previously discussed, just the fee in lieu agreement that we've reached with them.
And we have Mr. Burgess here. I know he's hardworking at that. Gentlemen, do you have questions or discussion? Mr. Tucker.
No further.
Mr. Gardner.
No question.
Others. All right. Well, very good with that. I've seen there is no discussion.
Quick
All right, Mr.
question.
Jones, go right
Mr.
ahead.
Carpenter, again, just how many jobs, how much money?
Mr. Burgess?
Mr. Burgess is coming up, and he'll help us through. You might as well get in the jump seat tonight. Jeff, go ahead.
Sir. Thank you, Chairman, members, council. Councilman Jones, it's 10.4 million, 54 jobs. Average wage is going to be $25.93 an hour, which breaks out to about $51,860 a year average salary.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good questions. Any other discussion? Again, you continue on your winning streak, Jeff. With that, I think we move to, go ahead and sit down, and we'll get you back.
One more quick question from Mr. Burgess.
Yeah, Russell, go ahead.
What's the fee in lieu agreed to? Is it 6%?
Yes, sir, 6%, 20 years, no SSRCs.
And it locks the millage for 20 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's typical?
Yes, sir. All
Okay.
investments.
Some of us won't be here in 20 years.
Thank you.
Yep. With that, we move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Tucker, for that motion. Number 2 is a resolution authorizing under certain conditions, fee in lieu for Project Panel. It's on page 11 in your electronic books. It's on the screen, and it's at tab C. Can we have a motion? Mr. Carpenter, first of all, explain a little bit of that, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, we have in front of you tonight on a resolution as well as a first reading of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a fee in lieu with the project that is currently known as Project panel.
And Mr. Burgess, be ready to answer those questions because they'll be asked again. Come on up and have a seat closer to the mic. Can we have a motion to approve, please?
Make a motion. Second.
Mr. Gardner, a second from Mr. Tucker. And with that, go ahead. Jeff, just come up and give us that detail, please. Percentage, net investment, jobs, and
Yes,
so
sir.
on.
Thank you again, Chairman and members. The proposed investment, $7.93 million, which is roughly 3.4 in machinery and equipment, 4.4 in building improvements. It's going to be roughly 80 new jobs with an average salary of an average hourly wage of $20 an hour.
$20.
And the fee in lieu is 6% for 20 years, no SSRCs.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yeah, but first let me have the lead here. Mr. Gardner? Mr. Tucker?
No, sir.
Okay, Jimmy, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Just a comment. We were dead in the water till you got here, and you have absolutely created a tidal wave, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
And don't try to correct me on what I just said, because what I just said is the truth. And thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Job well done.
Other comments?
Yeah, I'll
Go ahead, Russell.
reiterate the fact that, Jeff, you've done a great job. Something that I'd like to continue to point out to my fellow council members, this fee in lieu money, we've got a little more flexibility with how we budget with it. And I want to continue to think about the county fire service. It seems like we've got, I don't know how many projects since you've been here, Jeff.
A bunch.
It'll be 5 with this one, or 6 with the next public hearing or the expansion of law.
So the interesting thing about us being able to structure fee in lieu of tax agreement is we can use that money for county fire service. Am I correct in saying that, Mr. Carpenter?
Council can determine how those expenses are spent, yes, sir.
And I think this is a great way to fund county fire where we're handcuffed in other ways. I know not everybody agrees with that, but I just see so many opportunities with all of these investments in our community. So glad to see it and thankful for it.
Maybe we can take that up in the budget process.
If I may.
Mr. Jones, go right ahead.
I'm directing this to Russell Brazel, Councilman Russell Brazel. Job well done. I agree with everything you just said. You know, maybe we could even get rid of the fire fee.
Depending on the amount of money that
Exactly, we don't know, but
comes
if
in. And
Jeff Burgess keeps working as hard as he's working, and we start getting fee in lieu increases, as I'm sure we will, that would be what a great gift to give the citizens, is to do away with a fee and pay for it with the fee in lieu. Thank you. Good job, Councilman Brazel.
Other comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would say one thing, and that is Jeff is a great hire, and I think he would tell you both these projects started before he got here.
But we couldn't close the deal.
And I thank you very much for what your hard level of work, Jeff. But we all stand on the shoulders of those that came before us. And I think Jeff would agree that Peggy McLean did a lot of this, and I appreciate your being humble about that in that discussion you and I had earlier about it. So with that, we move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand, and it's unanimous. And we go to item number 3, which is to approve the use of ARPA funds to purchase property. It's at tab D and page 13 in your electronic book. And with that, Mr. Carpenter, can you explain what we have in front of us?
Mr. Chairman, members of council, I have in front of you tonight a resolution that would authorize and allow myself as administrator to negotiate and deal with the property owners around the wastewater treatment plant to allow us to purchase land for the purpose of expanding and buffering that facility. We discussed this at length in the spring. The council approved expenditures from the ARPA funds for this purpose, and further passed a policy that would guide us in how we would spend this money in relation to our wastewater treatment plant.
Very good. With a very interesting discussion, can we have a motion to approve?
so moved.
Mr. Russell Brazel, and a second?
Second.
From Mr. Connell. Thank you very much. Anything further on this issue before we begin discussion?
Merely that, again, I ask council's approval to allow me to do the necessary negotiations. Any determined conclusion will be brought back to this council for their actual approval of any deal that would be made.
To be clear, we're not talking a monetary amount here.
At this point,
We're
no,
not
sir.
talking acreage. So this gives you authority to negotiate and, to be clear, to be brought back into council.
That's correct.
Vote. With that, Mr. Brazel, go right ahead.
So this is a step in the right direction. We all know that our sewer capacity is kind of brimming, right? It's close to full. To buy the correct amount of acreage, that's what, a 550 acre tract surrounding?
Yes, sir.
What are we on now, 35 acres?
Roughly, yes, sir, a little less.
Well, I certainly encourage you to look into doing exactly what we need to do to secure the necessary land to expand our sewer and be able to serve all of our citizens. Is there anything further to discuss? Any details at this point, or is this just early stages?
It's early, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking care of that. That's something that needs to be done.
Mr. Connell, you had the second.
Mr. Chairman, I just look forward to learning more about the negotiation posture.
Very good.
I have a comment.
Mr. Jones, go ahead.
And I want to make some clarification too, as far as where I stand on this. You know, once again, I presented a solid, great plan, better than any that's been up here yet, that we could pay for our sewer, have some money left over, pay off our $6.5 million debt, pay off the $7.2 million in expansion we're doing on the Southern Loop. You know, did I say pay off our $6.5 million debt? Also, with our increase expansion from 2 to 4 MGD, it would have also provided money to do that, where we wouldn't have to go out and get 10 to 15, maybe $20 million on the expansion. Now, this land's going to cost us some money. But my plan, my great plan was voted down, and it was solid. And it was backed by engineers and attorneys whenever I did this a couple of times within the last 15 years. But I'm going to vote for this because, one, I think you're a good negotiator, and I know we have to do something. But I feel very sad up here today that I have to vote, you know, to go out and try to purchase land when there was a better way. Not my opinion, a fact. I'm very rarely wrong when I come up here and say something, in my opinion. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Other comments?
I'd like to clarify
Mr. Brazel, go ahead.
one or two things, and that's we all do have different options. I think, and respectfully, I'll say this: our sewer system, being in the hands of the citizens of Kershaw County, I feel like is important. I'd hate for something to be set back at our feet at a later date that could have been problematic for whomever purchased it. If it didn't go swell, they could walk away, and the problem would still land at our feet. And that's just the way I feel about it. Certainly, not to disagree with Mr. Jones. He had a great plan. But I think at this point in time, we've got a large sum of money that the federal government's bestowed upon us to spend in a fashion that would improve the citizens of Kershaw County's abilities to build homes, have sewer more readily available to them. And we probably won't see this again in the next 10 or 15 years. This is probably the opportunity to expand our sewer system and still gain and keep the control that we have to navigate it the way we see fit. In a point in which I think Mr. Jones and I would agree, we'd like to see it stand on its, or I won't speak for him, I'll say I would like to see it stand on its own 2 feet and eliminate the sewer tax that exists. It's a small tax, but it's a portion of the millage, and that would make me feel better about us keeping it.
We agree on that.
Yes, sir.
On that
Good.
one point.
But hey, it's all about working together and having different opinions and trying to come up with the right solution. So I wanted to clarify that there was money for this that hopefully will cover a very large portion of it. And we can accomplish this without any sort of increase at all in millage. So we'll look forward to seeing how that unfolds.
Other comments? With that, I call the question.
A quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Jones.
One, I didn't agree with the first part of what he said, but I'll tell you what, I have much respect for Russell Brazel's concept of trying to do away and eliminate an unfair sewer tax, trying to do away and eliminate a fee, which fees are taxes in disguise. So I do appreciate your commitment and your fight that you put forth just about every meeting we come here on those issues. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank
with
you for that.
Call the question, and all those in favor signify by raising your hand, and it's unanimous. And we move to a series of ordinances. Item number 1 is the third reading of an ordinance authorizing in fee in lieu between Kershaw County and Wellchem, formerly known as Bobcat. It's on page 16. It's at tab E, and it's on the screen. Mr. Carpenter, introduce the topic, please, sir.
Chairman, members of council, you have in front of you tonight for third reading an ordinance that authorizes a fee in lieu with the entity that we originally identified as Project Bobcat. We previously had the public hearing on this issue. Wellchem is the company name, as we know. Mr. Burgess is available if you have any questions.
Very good. Can we have a motion to approve?
Make the motion.
Ben, second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Tucker. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Burgess to come forward and ask the usual 5 or 6 answers before we ask the question.
Thank you, sir. As Vic noted, this is Wellchem. They have already fulfilled, they invested in 2019. They've already invested $2.69 million of that commitment of their 3.5. As part of this, they have come back for another fee in lieu because they are building a lab, a $4 million investment. To add on to that, this investment will create jobs, though they have tied no jobs to this at this point in time. The percentage of FELO is 6% for 20 years, which is just the net of their current agreement. This $4 million is an extension of 10 years to that existing FELO.
Very good. It's your district. Ben, you had the first question. Please, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I support this. I think one point worthy of noting is that the former CEO, I believe his name was Philippe, a guy from France, came over and got to meet everybody. He talked about growth at the area. In spite of a change in leadership that company has had, and even I think it was a company ownership change,
Yes,
they
sir.
still see it as an area of growth. And so that's been encouraging, and for that reason, in addition to the capacity and capabilities that will increase at that particular site, I support it.
Very good. Second, Mr. Tucker.
Thank you. Quick question, Mr. Burgess.
Yes, sir.
What was the initial investment? I know you said 2.69 has been met. What was that initial investment?
$3.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And for the record, there were incremental improvements way back into Gene Wise's day and before that. All right, other questions? Okay, very good. Wellchem has been a very, very good citizen. There was some issues on odor 5 or 6 years ago,
Even now,
and they stepped up right up to it and fixed it.
it hasn't gone away, sir.
I haven't heard a complaint on Wellchem. I've heard it on the sewer plant a little further up. With that, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. And it's unanimous. Jeff, give the good news to the Bobcat team, would
Yes,
you
sir,
please,
will do.
sir?
Thank you.
We move to item number 2, which is on page 38, tab F, a third reading of an ordinance on the redistricting plan. Mr. Carpenter, help us out here.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, as you're fully aware, the U.S. Constitution requires after every census that all elected bodies redistrict themselves in order to ensure that the principle of one man, one vote is upheld and that districts are roughly uniform in size. We have been through this process. We've had several public hearings, meetings. This is the final and third reading of an ordinance that would adopt that plan for county council.
Very good. With that, can we have a motion, Mr. Tucker?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the ordinance which reflects Plan 2B maps for our redistricting.
2, bravo. Can we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Gardner, the maps are on the board. Mr. Tucker, do you want to lead the discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. I just want to point out some things that we said last meeting. This map right here is our best map out of all the maps we've drawn around the board. It makes sure that we stay in compliance with our one man, one vote representation. It gives us the best percentages in retaining a minority district. It also makes sure that most of the districts, 1, 3, 4, and 6, doesn't have heavily changed to it. The 2B took out a portion of my district, which is 2, and put it in District 5. And when we sat down and started looking at it, we realized that that portion needed to come back. So the BVAP scores would be a little higher, and yet we would still remain within the one man, one vote, which is 10% of your population. And with BAP 2B, that puts us at 7.9%.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gardner, you had a second?
Yeah, essentially the 2B is one voting block different than 2A. It just moved that little part back into Councilman Tucker's district. I think this represents, after the census and the best case scenario for redrawing the district maps. A little bit of shift in some areas, but not a great deal of change from where they were. But I think this represents best case for Kershaw County.
Okay, other comments? Ben?
Mr. Chairman, I've struggled over these maps because the denser your population is, the smaller the area is. So people who are friends that you represented or businesses that you would try to stay in touch with, the area just shrinks and you don't get to represent them anymore. It's kind of it's a sad thing. But the lines shift based on population. You know, what can you do? I tend to agree that 2B has the smallest chance, I guess, for a constitutional challenge based on how the numbers come down. So that's all I had to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Jimmy, you had your hand up.
I did. I have to give some clarification. I don't represent a district. I represent the whole county. And I've always hated to be minimized by saying, well, you represent this area. Certainly that's the area that votes me either out or in. But bottom line is, you know, I represent this entire, and I know they do too, but I didn't mean they don't, but I just want to make it clear. There are no districts in my mind, okay? That's why I haven't even looked at the map since they did the last redoing. Votes are votes, no matter where they live. Thank you.
All right, very good. Russell, we're moving through. Do you have any comments on the redistricting? Okay, no comments there. And Mr. Snodgrass, of course, fully participated in the process. I would say a couple of things. First of all, I think every man up here, and Mr. Snodgrass would agree, that Mr. Opperman did a magnificent job.
Yes.
And went out of his way to be available for public comments when people asked to see him, and out of his way to see us on the county council. And taking it, I think, to 4 different options is kind of unprecedented around here. As members of the people here tonight understand, this county council did something we hadn't done before, which is we voted in advance on guiding principles so that we could be clear about what we wanted to achieve with this redistricting. And unfortunately, but by the law, we are driven by policy passed by the Supreme Court and the state and the national capital that requires us to do certain things. And to Mr. Connell's frustration and mine and everybody else's, precincts, businesses, continuity, identity is all compromised in the name of following the federal law, which is good and sufficient reason, but it does cause us sometimes to feel like we're being carved up like a Christmas turkey. I want to assure you that we followed our own policy as best we could, maintaining precinct integrity and other things of that nature. But this was quite an education for me in civics, and I should have paid attention in high school. I didn't to this issue, but we have done it as best we can for the interests of the county. What's happening at the state capitol is quite outside our domain. I've been asked to enter into that discussion, but what's happened with our state representatives and senators is well outside of our authority or ability to influence. We did the best we can. with running the county. And that's what we're going to vote on. With that, I move, Mr. Tucker, go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to bring up one point of clarity for all who's listening and who's here tonight. Not just what we're doing here for the county, but as the chairman spoke about, your state senators, your U.S. senators, House of Representatives, your school district, all these lines have potential of changing. So please, when all this is final in the first of the year, don't hesitate to check your voting precincts because they may change. And the county's going to do the best they can to get this information out. But what I'm telling you, I don't want June to catch you with your pants down and you're at the wrong precinct, then you get frustrated and then you go home. I don't want that to happen to any of you because I think the most precious and dearest thing that you can do in America is vote. So keep that in mind and double check where your precincts and things are. Do your homework before June gets here because we're going to vote in June. The only way you don't vote, we're not living. And I pray to God we all are living. So thank you.
Very good. With that, thank you, Mr. Tucker. We move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous. And we move on to item number 3, which is a first reading in title only of an ordinance for the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu tax for Project Orion. It's on page 68. And with that, Mr. Carpenter, please open.
Mr. Chair, members of council, we previously discussed Project Orion. This is first reading, and therefore it's in title only. The details you're fairly aware with, but the actual legal documents will follow at second reading.
Okay, very good. Can we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mr.
Mr. Tucker, and a second, Mr. Gardner. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Mr. Tucker, Mr.
No,
Gardner,
thank you.
title only. All right, with that, we move to a vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand, and it moves on to a second reading. We move to item number 4, first reading in title only, an ordinance for Project Panel. With that, Mr. Carpenter, can you open that up, please?
Mr. Chairman, as with the previous, we have already done the resolution for Project Panel. This is the first reading in title only.
With that, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Gardner, a second.
Second.
For Mr. Tucker. Any further thing from you, Jeff? You can sit back there and grin. Mr. Gardner, any comments? Mr. Tucker? Others? In title only? All right, very good. Let's move to a vote, and then we'll pass it on to second reading. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous. And we go now to a series of new business. The first of which was the vision, and we've already voted on that. And I thank you for your forbearance in allowing us to get that done and move the core team on home after a hard 9 months of work. We're on item number 2, a renewed and reimagined approach to the boat landing. It's at tab H and page 1 in the second packet in your read-aheads tonight. There is a letter in there from me that was very similar to the one written several years before that by Mr. Jones. As we've noted, we've had a long history here. First of all, can we have a motion from Mr. Brazel? Please, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to allocate up to, and I hope it doesn't take this much money, to allocate up to $60,000 from our ARPA account for the purpose of engaging in a study on the future of Patriots Landing, the boat ramp located on the Watery River at US 1. Now, I want to break this down into a few sections.
I think that would be good, and then we can come back and do that in a discussion.
That would be fine.
All right. So the motion is to allocate $60,000, restate that again, to a study.
Up to.
Go ahead, Russell, read that again.
So I'll reread it. Mr. Chairman, I move that we allocate up to $60,000 in funds from our ARPA account for the purpose of engaging in a study on the future of Patriots Landing, the boat ramp located on the Watery River at US 1, the one that's had so much discussion.
Excellent. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Jimmy, good. Got a second.
That doesn't
All right.
mean I'm going to vote for it.
With that, Mr. Brazel, go ahead, and if you want to outline the components of that study, go ahead, sir.
Okay, so here's the outline. The study will focus on the feasibility of possible actions. Determine if rebuilding the facility in the current available right-of-way to accentuate safety, maximize parking by adding an additional parking lot. Currently, a lot of you know that we're just parking under the bridge, and it's pretty tough. And locating a floating dock upstream of the rebuilt boat landing. We want to find out if that's feasible or not. If not, what must we do to acquire the land to accomplish this goal? Section 2, determine the cost necessary to accomplish goal 1 and add a second boat landing. I've been there on Sunday afternoons, and the wait to get in is, it can be pretty bad if everybody's taken out at the same time. You got about 35 or 40 trucks and trailers.
It would help us if you just list them, and then you can discuss. And then, can we get copies of this to each of our council members? Yeah, great, go ahead.
Absolutely.
If you don't speak in the mic, Mr. Chairman, people can't hear you. The thousands of people that are listening to us can't hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
My style may be a little different than others, but I kind of like to explain things as I go. So, including any additional necessary land acquisition, that would be portion 2. Thirdly, analyze the potential of building an event venue that would support fishing tournaments with necessary infrastructure, such as bathrooms, a location to have a fish weigh-in, parking, and seating. I think there's a lot that could be done on our river for the sportsmen and for the fishermen. Fourthly, determine if Kershaw County will be able to make future improvements on this property by clarifying ownership. That's been a lot of that back and forth as to who's responsible. I'm ready to take responsibility for this ramp so that moving forward it doesn't take 6 years to accomplish something. I would also like to direct staff to, as soon as possible, secure someone to remove the current floating dock that's located at this facility. We can retain it for future use if we're able to reinstall it upstream. I make this in form of a motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion there, Russell?
No, I just did it when I was reading it.
Let me just see if I record what you said. Item number 1 was basically.
You don't remember.
Determine if rebuilding the facility in the current available right-of-way to accentuate safety, maximize parking by adding an additional parking lot and locating a floating dock upstream of the rebuilt boat landing can be feasibly accomplished.
Yeah, item 2 was.
Determine the cost necessary to accomplish goal 1.
And then item 3 was.
Analyze the potential of building an event venue.
Item 4 was what?
Determine if Kershaw County can take ownership of this to make future improvements without so much.
Ownership. And item 5 was what?
Well, the last item was to direct staff to, as soon as possible, get that boat ramp out so that we don't see more trailers and boats torn up and the potential of someone getting hurt.
Perfect. That's great. Mary's not here, so when this is over with, give us a hard copy so that Mary can record that. Any further discussion here?
I'm next.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, you had the second. Go ahead.
Just follow up. I don't mind you going before me, but normally he lets the person who gives the.
Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Thank you, Julian. All I want to see is the boat ramp fixed. You know, take it out. Does it take $60,000, Vic, to do this? I mean, we've got an engineer you just hired.
To take the boat ramp out, we don't have a cost yet. We are, Shane is reaching out with various vendors as we speak. He told me he should have answers back within our procurement policies within the next several weeks of how much it will cost. But the $60,000, I understand, is not towards the cost of removing the boat ramp. That's a separate cost that the county would incur. The up to $60,000 would only be for the purpose of studying the future of that. So it's 2 separate issues. One is study to determine the future. Second, staff go ahead and take out that ramp as soon as possible out of our current budget.
Listen, I've had to help people get out from up under the ramp. it's an accident waiting to happen, or it has happened. And of course, I brought this up years ago, had no support. Well, there was no interest at that time. Russell Brazel came on board. Thank you, Russell, for bringing this to the forefront. I stand with you all the way. I just have problems spending so much money to do something. I just don't think it would take that much money to do that. I mean,
To remove it probably wouldn't take near 60,000
No,
to remove
heavens.
it. That's not a
I want that
cost
job
range.
if you do.
And even the study would unlikely to cost near 60, but that just allows us to get it done.
And I don't need to hear the 5 items again that Russell quoted. However, I know he'll give a copy to everybody. But my main interest right now is to get that boat ramp out, get one in that is put in the right way. And I just don't think it's going to take $60,000 to do that. Then we can certainly work towards, he's got some great ideas there, but I mean, you know, you eat the elephant one bite at a time. That's kind of where I'm at.
When Mr. Brazel asked me what it cost, I don't think it'll cost anywhere near 60, but the only reason why I gave that figure was in the current environment, we don't know what costs are going to be. I would hate to delay and come back weeks later because it came in more than y'all allocated.
I don't want to delay either.
So I've asked you to give me an upper limit that I don't believe we would reach. Then I don't have to come back to you in the event that it was a lower limit and the bids came in higher. So that just gives me the flexibility. I'm not going to spend it if we don't need to spend it. I think you know that.
I do know that. It's just giving the freedom to go to $60,000. I'd like to make an amendment.
All
Can
right.
I ask a question?
Go
Wait a
ahead.
minute, I still have the floor, sir.
You want to go ahead and
I
hear
just
his
wanna-
question?
I just want to ask one
Go
question
ahead,
because
Mr. Gardner.
I don't care, go ahead.
and I want the boat ramp fixed too.
I know you do.
But I thought we had allocated all of our ARPA money to the sewer. Do we have more ARPA money available that I'm not aware of?
Yes, sir. Well, no, I mean, we have what we have, but when council passed its policy, we have funds within that policy you've approved that would allow us.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Not all the money was allocated to sewer.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Gardner. You had an amendment, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment that from the $60,000 on the motion, that it go to $5,000.
$5,000 is the amendment. Do we have a second to Mr. Jones' amendment to go to $5,000? We don't have.
Point of clarification.
Go ahead.
Is that for the study only?
Yes.
I'll second that.
Second. Discussion on a $5,000 study.
Just saved us $55,000.
So, let me,
I'm sorry, was it 50 or 5?
No, mine was 5,000.
5,000,
You said
gotcha.
discussion on it. I said that will save the taxpayers $55,000.
can I have a few minutes?
Yes, sir, you sure can.
So I completely and totally agree with you. I think Robin and I can go out there and maybe Reed and Rob and a few buddies. We can probably knock that thing out. Davis says he can help.
They're big enough.
I don't see the need to spend 60. And Vic and I discussed this. He doesn't think it's going to cost anywhere near that. I don't suppose it will either, but I think it's going to cost more than 5. And hear me loud and hear me clear when I say this. We used $1.2 million to bonus pay our very important and very loved firemen, police officers. Let's not shortchange the sporting community. They're worth more than $5,000.
Oh, that's a cheap shot. That, you know, I respect our sporting community.
No, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but all things equal, I want this done and I want it done right. The Wateree River means so much to our community. I hope we can get it done for $2,000, but in today's world, unfortunately, everything's extraordinarily expensive. I've engaged in conversations with Representative Dabney. I've engaged with conversations with Thomas McElveen, Senator McElveen. I've engaged conversations with Senator Gustafson.
And me.
Yeah, as well as everybody here, and Mr. Jones jumped on board immediately, as well Chairman Burns did. again, we're at a point in which we can do this and do it right. I don't want to have to do this again in 2 years or 3 years or 10 years. We've got an opportunity to do something for this community that means a lot to a lot of people. And please, Mr. Jones, I didn't mean that in a negative
I know you didn't.
manner. That's just how passionately I feel about it.
Well,
And
I am too.
we all want to save money. This isn't going to increase any kind of taxes in any way, shape, or form. And at the end of the day, it'll be spent on something else. So I want to look after that part of our community, and I want to get this done and get it done right.
Other discussion on that matter?
Mr. Chairman, I have a second.
You got your second. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two threshold questions. ARPA funds, under which section is it appropriate to spend for this kind of purpose?
We have two sections that would be authorized. One is a section that is for outdoor recreation, and the second would be under lost revenue. And the lost revenue fund is the most permissive aspect of it that would allow us to spend it on this.
Okay. Second question is, do we actually own the boat ramp?
You asking me, Mr.?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Connell, the boat ramp is actually on DOT right-of-way, and it was actually paid for using funds through the state. And Kershaw County was the sponsor of the funds which were channeled through us. So I don't really know who actually owns the boat ramp. We didn't pay for it. We didn't initiate it. It's not on our right-of-way.
So
I think we did get the permit to put it, well, we applied for the permit, to put it in the river.
We
applied for the permit.
In the past, when the issues come up, the instruction I've been given is we didn't own it. We had agreed to a maintenance responsibility for the parking lot only. And so if it's now the situation where the state's willing to put in writing that, hey, you get a new asset, the way I read it is DNR or whoever was making decisions over there, now that there's a price tag associated with this boat ramp and floating dock, they're saying, oh, we don't own it, we don't have it. And if it's the case that we can pick up an asset and use it and improve the community, that sounds great, but I think we need to get something in writing before we start messing with it.
Yeah, I'm not aware that an encroachment permit was ever granted to Kershaw County to put that boat ramp in.
So in your
It's on
view,
DOT right away. So usually you have to get an encroachment permit to do something on a public right of way, and I'm not aware that Kershaw County ever got one.
so in your view, Mr.
We were asked
DeBose,
for one.
DeBose, I like Mr. Brazel's ideas. I think they're great. It might be a matter of allocation. I think maybe it takes $5,000 for somebody to tell us what the options are. It can only be remove the floating dock and the pilings, move them to the upstream side is option 2, or put in jetties to try to stop the flow somewhat. I mean, those are the only 3 that I see, but you could have an engineer look at that, and it shouldn't be that expensive. I'd be okay with allocating more of, say it's $60,000 to an actual capital cost or labor that's required to fix it. But before any of that can be done, what's your opinion on what Kershaw County needs to obtain to have the right to do something?
Well, you're going to have to get a permit from the Corps of Engineers to the river belong to the United States of America. So for you to go into the river, you're going to have to get a permit. And we applied for the permit before, but we didn't fund it, we didn't design it, and I don't think we ever got an encroachment permit.
Has it aged out, or is there a way for us just to amend our prior application and ask for some type of variance?
I don't know that. I do know this, putting a jetty in is totally different than putting in a dock. I do know that. Totally different proposition.
Well, fellow council members, I see that as a threshold question. I mean, we can allocate funds and figure out what we're going to do, but I think we've got to own it, either get the permit or have some permission on the front end before we say how much we're going to spend and what we're going to do.
Well, I'm willing to do that.
Line item 4.
Yeah,
That's
no,
exactly what that's designed to do.
I get that, and I think that's maybe this is in no particular order, but that question I think needs to be answered first, right?
I don't care how they do it, as long as they get it done.
Because if they say we're not going to issue a permit, or no, we're going to retain ownership, then we could put $200,000 towards it, and we wouldn't have permission to do anything. Is that correct, Mr. Bose?
I think you'd have to apply for a permit, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to have to get a permit to construct anything in the watery river, which is a navigable river that belongs to the United States of America.
But we should have no trouble. My God, we built buildings on swampland. True or false?
But Mr. Jones, I don't know the
Let's stay on
parameters of getting a
topic here.
permit. I think there
Excuse
are
me, Mr.
different
Chairman, I
types
am
of
on
permits,
topic.
yes.
All right, we
Tell
have
me
a
what you wanna
motion
do.
before us. Any further discussion on the motion to go to $5,000 to do the 5 items enumerated? Any further discussion? Mr. Jones?
It was for the study on, for the boat ramp, okay? Not to replace, and I know you didn't say that, but I just want to make that clear, not to replace, but it is to do the study.
So the motion is $5,000 to do those 5 items, and the original motion carried by Mr. Brazel. All those in favor of a $5,000
Mr.
study?
Chairman, if I may make a point of order,
Yeah.
point of clarification.
Please.
My motion was $5,000 to do a study on what it would take to make it safe, not necessarily go into all 4 or 5 positions that Mr. Brazel.
So I think we're going to be able to take that ramp out for $5,000 or $10,000. I mean, take the floating dock out for that small
I'm just
amount
trying
of
to
money.
make clarification on my motion.
But
Okay,
there- thank you.
I got it. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion?
Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to clarify. Based on Mr. Jones' clarification, I know this sounds redundant, but I do think you have to determine as a threshold issue ownership and whether or not you even have a right to apply for a permit and those sorts of things.
And
So-
you made that clear, sir.
Yeah, but that's not your motion, so I can't vote in favor of it.
Okay, so all those in favor of Mr. Jones' motion signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, so signify. And we return to the original, it fails, so we return to the original motion. Is there any further discussion on the original motion? Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is to you, Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Gardner asked a question about the ARPA funds, and I recall, and please correct me if I'm wrong, when we did during the budget cycle there, we spent all the ARPA monies for the sewer and various things, fire, and we kind of line item it out. So is this part of that $2 million that you have that was in the budget with the 60? I'm just trying to clarify where these funds are coming from, because let me explain before you answer that question. I don't want people coming up to me, as they have in the past, Lugoff Water Authority, Cassett Water Authority, Lynch's River, who's trying to do internet out in our rural area, and say, well, y'all tell us there's no more money, but money keeps showing up every time you come up with a new project. I don't want to be caught in that rat trap. Okay, so I'm asking for clarity so I'll be able to answer correctly to the other constituents and citizens of Kershaw County. Now, I don't have a problem with the 60,000 because I'll take it out of reserves. It's well deserved to be spent on what we need to do to get the boat ramp straight. So I want everybody to understand that. I just want to be consistent on this ARPA money. That's your question.
I think that's a question, and that's for you, Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Tucker, when we approved the funding in the budget, part of it was a total of $4 million from ARPA funds, and part of that was for the purpose of studies to be conducted. So we have allocated funds in the budget from ARPA funds for studies, and we allowed ourselves, we did not enumerate every study because we knew there would be studies that we needed to do this year, and we funded them in advance.
Yeah, that's how I
This was
remember it,
previously
too.
funded.
Can we ask you to pull that resolution back out and pass it around to councilmen before the next meeting, if you wouldn't mind? Sammy, back to you, sir.
No, and that's, I want to make sure that we're not depleting something that we already approve and exactly where the funds are coming from. I'm not telling you that they're not worthy to be used. I just want to make sure that, we're consistent about what we tell the citizens and the public.
Okay. Let's have some closure on the discussions. Gentlemen, Mr. Connell.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to say ATAX would also be a potentially eligible fund for this based on the use of it. Of course, this is the first time we're hearing this or seeing it from Mr. Brazel. So based on some of the clarifications and it being in no particular order, I think I can support the $60,000 with the understanding that we have that the study's not going to cost that much. We might be able to do the study in-house with our own engineer to say option 1, 2, or 3 is good. And then any remaining money that's being allocated under this motion can go towards capital or labor to take care of the issue. Again, with figuring out first, do we own it? Do we have a right? Can the permit be issued? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and apropos of that, Mr. Carpenter a little later on is going to introduce our new engineer. Mr. Gardner.
kind of to add on to Ben's comments there that, you know, we're going to approve $60,000 on a project that we don't even know that we can do, essentially. I mean, I think we need, like Ben said, I think we need to determine whether we can even do the project first.
And I believe that is, if I may, that's kind of what Mr. Brazel's motion directs us to do.
That's item number 4. That's
Yes,
why I had him
so-
re-enumerate. Thank
So
you.
the 60,000 goes away if we don't determine that we can do that. Is that,
If
is
we-
that the way that, I
if we
didn't get
can't-
that out of it, but.
If we can't do this, we won't spend an atrocious amount of money, I can assure you. I'm
I
against
didn't get
wasting
that out
money.
of what you were saying, but if that's what it says, then I'll support it.
Yeah, let me reread item 4. And maybe this should be item 1. You'll have to accept my apology. Determine if Kershaw County will be able to make future improvements on this property by clarifying ownership.
Well said.
Mi-
I think that should.
Mr. Brazel, can you make that number
Take
one?
it out and you can't rebuild it till you know whether you own it. So that to me would be number 1. So,
Well, I think we hit points.
It just became item number 1.
very good.
All right.
That's easy.
Okay.
With that, I'm ready to call the question. Let's get this thing
I'd like to
fixed.
make one quick.
Yeah, Jimmy, go right ahead.
Just want to say, Mr. Brazel, thank you for this so much. I've been waiting for this for 2 years, and with no hope of it happening because of the item 1, because it was not clear about ownership. But I support you in this. I'm going to support this tonight.
Thank you, sir.
And but I just tried to get as little bit of money spent as possible.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. The $60,000 is, I think, way more than it should cost. And I'll add to this, I met with the engineer from the Department of Natural Resources who designed it initially, and I cannot recall the gentleman's name, and I wouldn't call his name. He was a fine young man. In that meeting, I was told, he told me that we were having operator error issues, and I could fill this room up 17 times with people who've had issues. It's not an operator error issue. I'd love to work with the DNR and their engineering department to fix this correctly. And I'd like to call on Senator Thomas McElveen for his help, because he and I have had some pretty in-depth discussions with folks at DNR about fixing this, and he has indicated that he could help. There could be some potential help from the state as well. So all the cards are on the table. We're doing whatever it takes to be the driving force behind fixing this for the citizens in our community.
Okay, Mr. Jones, you get the last comment. Please, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to finish, but thank you, Mr. Brazel. But I did want to say, Ben, thank you for bringing up and clarifying the issues that you brought up about the ownership as well, too. I think that is just equally as important what Mr. Brazel did. But I think with the pass of this motion and this proposal, that Mr. Carpenter, ball's in your glove.
Yes, sir.
Let's get it done.
All right, very good. All those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand. And it's unanimous, and if we can have a copy of that, that would be very helpful, Russell. We move to the last item on the agenda, item number 3. It's at page 2, Annex I, page 2 of the second chart. And with that, it's a schedule for county council meetings. I call on Mr. Gardner. Please, sir.
Yes, sir. I would move that we, for 2022, have meetings twice a month for the first 6 months and once a month for the last 6 months, same schedule that we're on currently.
Okay, can we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tucker, discussion, Mr. Gardner.
I think this works very well for us. It seems that after we get the budget done, and we'll have many more meetings than the 2 per month in the first 6 months because of budget issues, because we don't have as many items the last 6 months. The one meeting works very well, and I think that the time constraints that I think Ms. Mary has studied those, and it's not the meetings aren't any longer with one meeting than they are for 2. So I think this works very well for us, and I think it helps staff not have to be out some as well. So I would propose that we adopt this meeting schedule.
Mr. Tucker, you had a second.
Yes, sir. Ditto.
Other comments?
Yeah, I want to make an amendment.
Mr. Jones?
I want to make an amendment that we go to 2 meetings a month, the second and the fourth Tuesdays of every month, as this county council has done since the beginning of time.
Okay.
And we have,
Can we have a second
wait a
on
minute,
that?
okay. But anyway, that's my
Yeah,
motion.
thank you, sir. A second on 2 meetings a month. Okay, Mr. Jones, we don't have a second. With that, we return to the original motion. Any further discussion? Yeah, Mr. Jones, go
The reason I
ahead.
made my amendment, I don't know why it failed, but folks, once a month, you get disconnected. That's 30 days between meetings. We get disconnected, and I just don't think we can keep up that way. I think it's a bad policy for this county council. I think when we signed up and we ran for these offices, we were always meeting twice a month. And, you know, last year, I did compromise because I wanted to go to 2 meetings, back to 2 meetings a month. Y'all had made the offer to go to 1 meeting for 12 months. Well, when I agreed to go to, do half the months, y'all did that, but I can't do it this time. I have to vote against it because I tell you, folks, we get disconnected. We cannot, as a county council, sit here once every 30 days and keep up with what's going on. We just can't do. So I look at this, and, we talk about, well, we can call special call meetings. It took how long for us to do the vote on the millage ordinance? 3 readings at once a month, 3 months. And then, people got their bills late in December. We should have called a special call meeting then, but we didn't do it. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I'm just stating the facts. It just doesn't work. And I can't support anything with 1 meeting a month. I just don't think that's fair to the citizens of Kershaw County who elected us to be up here. Thank you.
Other comments, please. Seeing there are none, we move to a vote. All those in favor of Mr. Gardner's motion signify by raising your hand. Mr. Tucker, Mr. Gardner, Mr. Burns, Mr. Brazel, and Mr. Connell. Those opposed, Mr. Jones, and it passes in accordance with the schedule on the screen. With that, we move now to council briefings. Mr. Brazel, would you do the honors?
I'd be happy to. Is it okay if I have something personal to say about one of my family members? Would that be appropriate?
Absolutely. Say whatever you want to say.
Sure.
You can say what you want to say, Mr. Brazel.
This will be the only time I get to publicly tell my son, Merritt Brazel, how very proud I am of him getting accepted to the University of Virginia.
He's punching down in his seat.
No, that's his little brother. It's not his turn yet.
Yeah, that's why I said he's scrunching down in his seat.
But I just wanted to say in public and using this privilege, I thank you for letting me use this privilege. Very proud of you, Merritt. You worked hard, and look forward to seeing you blossom in college. And we love you, and your mother and I love you, and we care about you, and we're so very proud of you. And I don't usually make this about me or my family, but I just wanted to be able to say that publicly, and I'm thankful to be able to do that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Elgin Catfish Stomp Parade was just awesome. It was the largest attended one that we've had. So thanks to Elgin Town Council, the mayor, all those that participated, and the crew that made the awesome catfish stew. Now, on a more somber and serious note, one of my good friends who I've sung with many times in the community, and perhaps individually, he has performed more patriotic and gospel songs in Kershaw County than anybody else. Sammy Dennis recently lost his wife, Angela.
Yep.
And they're just outstanding members of the community. So with Sammy, we mourn while we think about Angela. She was a delight. She was just wonderful to know, and I think she in many ways inspired Sammy Dennis's music. If it wasn't already inspired by God, it was inspired by Angela.
Absolutely.
So I share my condolences with the Dennis family. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Sir, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the county council. Ben Connell, well said. Fine people, and my heart and prayers go out to Sam and his family as well. And Russell Brazel, I echo everything you said. I love your family. I'm proud of your son. And you have a right to be proud. And as I said, we wish him all the best. We sure do. A subject that I don't like talking about sometimes, but I'm going to talk about it. I'll talk about me for a moment. I think it's everybody's favorite subject up here on county council. You know, the Lights of Lugoff Christmas parade was really a joke. Anyway, the Lights of Lugoff Christmas parade had to go to the rain date. And I think we had about 75 or 80% of the crowd that we normally had. It was a huge, huge crowd. What a great, great success. And I just want to thank Jill Wolf, Sherry Barrett, Ashley Rabin. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of the folks that was our 14th year with the Lights of Lugoff Christmas Parade. And that parade started by me calling Henry Powers and saying, Henry, you've always wanted a parade. Let's go ahead and do one. And Henry said, well, let's let the Optimist Club sponsor it, and let's pull a committee together. Well, we did, and 5 of us are still on that committee that was there 14 years ago, even though I don't do nothing, except, run in the parade, run the entire parade, as far as, physically. And as I'm going to do when I run for my reelection. But no, those folks have worked so hard. What a success, the Lights of Lugoff Christmas Parade. And again, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to speak my mind. Thank you so much.
Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. Councilman Brazel, don't ever, ever be, I would say, conservative when it comes down to your family. I'm going to give you a tidbit of what I told my children when they were going off to school and away from home. Always, always be proud to brag on your children. And as children, always give your parents something to brag on. When you're in these meetings with your colleagues and your fellow man talking, it's good as a parent that I can say what my child's doing or my children's doing. So always, when you're making your decisions and you're going off long distance and things, and even if you're still here local in school, make your parents proud because they are proud of you, but give them something to brag on every chance you get, and they love you. And go UAV. Congratulations. I say to all of you up here and in the audience and that's on the internet, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, because we will not be seeing you again before January's meeting. And I wish that all stay safe. I thank Vic and staff and Mr. DeBose and all, Miss Mary, Danny, for all their hard work, Michael, Jeff, just everybody who's made 2021 a success for Kershaw County. And I know it hasn't been easy. I know that it hasn't been all downhill. We've had some uphill climbs along this journey, and that's what it is. It's a journey. But the main thing is that we stay positive and we stay continuing to love and support one another. As I get older and look around the world, I think that's the number one thing that we miss most. I told a fellow just the other day on my job, why do you wake up like you eat bottle glass every morning? Is there any happy moments in your life? Don't let anybody steal your joy. Wake up happy, be friendly, be encouraged, be supportive, because the world can't have too much of that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gardner, thank you.
Yeah, just a couple things. Kershaw County had a really good year this year. Since this is the last one, I think we've done very well, and I'd like to thank our staff, our employees, council, constituents, everybody that's involved. We've had some base hits and some home runs in economic development and a lot of other things that we're doing here. We're really on a really good, fast track right now going into 2022. And I just think, we've kept taxes low, millage rate dropped. A lot of good things have been going on in the county, so I think it's, and we have a lot of people to thank for that. But I think we're on the right track. We're doing a lot of great things. And one other thing, Clemson won the national championship in soccer the other day. Just want to make sure that Vic knew that, especially. So thanks, Vic. That's for you.
All right, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. A great year, a banner year. And again, thanks to the staff, everybody. Just wonderful work. 500 new jobs and so on and so forth. But it's a short distance from the penthouse to the outhouse. And progress is measured on the stairs. And when there's a problem, it's often down by the elevator. So it goes quicker. So let's be on the alert for good things in the county, but also recognize we're influenced by events outside the county. inflation, political issues, the threats of war in the Ukraine, things that I know a little bit about, all stand out there. But if we do it together, we can get through this. I would like to share with you the fact that one thing didn't get done. It wasn't a banner year in roads in West Wateree. I've given to each of the council members a letter I wrote to the Council of Governments for Central Midlands. It's no stranger to Mr. Connell. He and I have fought this battle for 5 years, Ben, and we're not making any progress. I think it's time to throw down on this issue, and that letter is in your hands. We have got to do something about the roads in West Wateree, and not to mention also 521 out by CCTC, and also I got a note from Springdale Road, and also up on 521 North. Everybody's got their own story about what the state needs to do and the federal government needs to do to help us on roads. As to 2 meetings a month versus 1, it has to do with a philosophy of government that I subscribe to, which is less government is better. Not more government is better. Less is better. Less is more. And once we do our hard work between now and June and get the budget passed, we need to get out of the way of the staff and let them do their jobs. And that's why I supported 1 meeting a month after we have given policy and resource guidance to our wonderful staff. I remind you all on the 18th, Wreaths Across America. For those that support veterans, it is a fantastic privately funded event that we, this council, resolved to support. It's on the 18th. It's going to be warm and it's going to be wet, and show up and help our veterans hang wreaths on the tombs and grave markers of hundreds of our veterans buried across this county. I ask you your help. I'm going to be there and looking for you. Thanks again to the core group. And our next meeting is the 11th of January. I wish you all a very happy Christmas and a Merry New Year, or vice versa. Over to you, Vic.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, just a few items for tonight. First, as you briefly alluded to earlier, I'd like to introduce you to 2 of our newest staff members. As you know, we, with the retirement of Nick Anderson some months back, we pieced together support until we could replace Nick with a very worthy replacement. Mr. Dan Canty is in the room tonight, is our new Roads and Bridges Supervisor and Manager for the county. Probably most of you know Mr. Canty. He's local.
Really? That's what we heard?
Dan brings a world of knowledge and experience in construction and the practices related to it, equipment management, people management, and we are fortunate and blessed that Dan is now part of this amazing team. Also, we have with us tonight on his second day on the job, our new county engineer, Mr. Dan Lambert. Mr. Lambert has spent a career as an engineer in private sector and the government sector. He comes to us most recently from the city of Chapin, where he oversaw a sewer department with over 6,000 customers. He'll be stepping in immediately to take our department. As you know, Russ Van Patten before him had kept a good eye on it for us, and Dan will be stepping in. He's definitely in the deep end of the pool at the moment. We have so much going on. So introduce those 2 gentlemen to you and encourage you to get to know them. I think you'll be just as impressed with them as everybody else has been. And then finally, just kind of some visual images for you to see as we end the night out at our Parks and Rec Department. Danny, if you just want to cycle through those pictures for the council to see and remember. This has been an amazing year and a great year. Movies, movie nights, trick-or-treat trails, tinsel trails, Christmas trees, happy faces. If you've been out there, I hope you all have made it out there at least once in this holiday season, and it's only going to get better. The staff we have in Parks and Rec are so engaged and energized right now, and they're doing amazing things. And you see the benefit of what they're doing. And again, if you've been out there to see the kids, that makes it all worthwhile. Sports and athletics are just as important as always, but they're taking very seriously to heart providing other resources to our citizens and neighbors who may not play ball. And that, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Perfect. Attorney, Ken?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing.
Merry Christmas to you. That's the first time I've heard you say something cheerful.
Mr. Chairman.
With that, we have no executive session. Can we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, one more thing.
Yeah.
You ready, Danny? Go Navy. Beat Army.
Oh, gosh. Can't stand it. Out of order, Mr.
I'll make a motion.
Tucker. Make a motion. Mr.
make a
Connell, who's got a second? Mr. Jones, any discussion? We'll see you again on the 11th of January. All those in favor, raise your hands. And it's unanimous. We are adjourned. Merry Christmas.